Hi everyone, I'm Matt the Friendly Board Gamer and welcome to the DICECT review. Today we are going to be dissecting The Loop. The Loop is a 1 to 4 player co-op deck building game designed by Maxime Rambourg and Theo Riviere and published by Pandasaurus Games. So in The Loop you play as a temporal agent and there's an evil doctor, Dr. Fu, who has made clones of himself and sent them to past, present and future ages, and he is attempting to take over the world, do bad things and mess with the time-space continuum. So as a temporal agent, your job is to stop him. You need to defeat his clones, you need to complete the missions, and you need to stop Dr. Fu before the rifts in the time-space come to fruition and Dr. Fu destroys the world and wins. So let's head to the table and take an overview of how the loop plays. So this is a typical setup for a two-player game. We have Robo Finisher 404 and Mr. Time here as our two characters. So a quick overview of the game. What we have is this little cube tower here which will be spewing out the rift cubes, which are these red cubes. And what we are going to be doing is we're going to be travelling around the different eras. We're going to be kicking out these clones of Dr. Fu, try to get them to the relevant eras that matches the icons to then remove them from the board. We are trying to keep the number of rifts down to minimum. If we ever get 3 rifts in any of the eras, then a vortex happens. If any missions are being undertaken in the era where vortex happens, they are the progress on them is lost. And basically we are trying to do the various missions. Each of the tiles on the outside is a different mission, and there are other missions in the game as well. So there's 10 different missions, so some here. And when you complete one mission, you reveal another one. There's only ever 2 on show at any one time. Each character has their own ability. They also have their own starting deck. So this is the Robo Finisher 404 starting deck, and you see the matching symbols at the top here, match the symbols here, so you know sort of the suit or the type of card that they have in their deck. And a typical turn will look like you start off by drawing a clone from the clone bag. This will have an icon on the back, so that will go in that era. You then reveal a Dr. Fu card, or Dr. Fu card. This will tell you that he will go to the robot era. You then look at the particular era, and if there's any clones in the era, you add another rift cube, but you drop 2 rift cubes plus 1 for every clone. So they'll go in the tower and come out. They spew out in this era, so the 2 rift cubes would go there. You then also draw an artifact card, and you'll add that to the era that's indicated on the bottom. So in this case it would go into this era here. Then the player would have the turn, so they would have a hand of 3 cards. These cards can be played to do various actions. You can move, you have a free move, so I could potentially move to here for 1 action, exhausting my character. I could play my sniper shotgun, which lets push up to 2 clones to an adjacent area, so I could push that, and if there's another one somewhere else I could push that one as well. In this case that clone will be removed back into the bag, and I could keep on playing my cards to do various actions. If there is any energy, let's say there's energy in this zone, I can spend an energy to move again, so I could potentially move to here. I could spend that energy to refresh and then use 1 type of suit of cards again. So for the example of Mr. Time, if I had played, let's say, if I had these 3 cards in my hand and I played all 3 of these, I could spend an energy, I could pick these up and I could use them again and perform an action again. So I'm looping the actions on the cards. And basically what you're doing, you're going around trying to complete these missions, keep the clones under control, keep the rifts under control. Certain cards will let you remove rifts. And if you finish your turn in a particular zone where there is an artifact card, you can collect that, put it on top of your deck, and it goes on top of your deck. You will then draw that up when you draw up to a hand size of 3. There are 4 different missions. This is the sabotage, this is the basic, and the starter mission. The victory conditions are to complete 4 missions. There are no particular special rules, but if you ever get a vortex in a particular era, let's say if we had a vortex there, and you would put one of these vortex tiles down. If you get a second vortex in that era, then you immediately lose the game. If you get 3 vortexes out and a 4th needs to be placed, you lose the game. And as you cycle through these, upside down, as you cycle through these cards, they will then get, when you reach the final, they'll get redealt, reshuffled, and you move to the second cycle where you draw more clones, and the third cycle where you draw 3 more clones. And if you ever get to the end of that cycle, that also triggers the end of the game as well. There's a big deck of artifact cards here, all sorts of weird and wacky. The Thunderdome, Spartan Shield, a research dog, a big roll of duct tape, all sorts of one. My favourite is the is it a strawberry donut or a jam donut? That's my favourite one. You got the Bat of Final Judgment, Philosopher's Stone, Gutenberg's Wormhole, all sorts of cool, funky named artifacts that you'll pick up and collect as you go along. And that is a very quick overview of the game. Obviously it's not a full rules explanation, I'm not going into all the detail of the rules, but hopefully that will give you a good idea of how the game plays. So let's go back up top and dissect the loop. So you've seen an overview of how the loop plays, so let's kick things off with D for duration. How long does the game play? You're looking at probably 45 to 60 minutes, I'd say, for either solo or co-op. The game, yeah, the length is about right, I think. The problem is that there is a fair bit of randomness in the game. The randomness where sort of the cubes come out of this cube tower. So games can be a bit shorter if you are very unlucky and you know from then that you're not going to complete the game, so you can call it a bit early. But generally, the randomness isn't too much of an issue, and games will last between 45 and 60 minutes. There is an inbuilt timer, so the Dr. Foe deck, you're going to go through that 3 times, 7 cards each time, and when that hits the end of the third run, the game will end, or when you complete your 4 missions, the game will end. So yeah, the duration feels about right. I wouldn't want it any longer, but any shorter would feel a bit too quick for what you're doing in the game. Setup, there is some setup. It does take a little bit of setup. You need to set up the board, set up your mission, select your characters, select your cards, deal out the decks, starting decks, set where the clones begin, set the missions. It's not major, but there is a bit of setup there. It doesn't take too long, but it is just something to be aware of. So for interaction, well, like I said, it's a cooperative game, so you're not interacting in terms of aggressively attacking your other players. You're trying to communicate, work out what best to do, firefight the issues. You're good at defeating clones, so you need to go over here and defeat them clones. You're good at dealing with rifts, them rifts need to be dealt with. Where's Dr. Foe going to come next? All them sort of conversations they go through, they go around from turn to turn, so people know what they need to be concentrating on. You might want to end your turn on a specific space, so you can pick up an artifact card and add it to your deck, because it's a good card to add to your deck so you can do loops better. So that's where the interaction comes from. It's from that communication, that cooperation, as with most cooperative games. So complexity, the game is relatively simple. It's pretty easy to learn from the rule book. I had no problem learning it and then teaching it to other people. The sabotage mission is probably the best one to start off with, because that's the sort of the intro mission. There's no additional rules on that one. And then once people have played it a few times with that, you can then move on to some of the more complicated missions that have sort of the additional intricacies. There's some depth and it's not complexity, but just trying to figure out how best to maximise and be efficient with your turns, how to perform them loops to get the most out of your turn, to be the most efficient with your turn. So that's where some of the it's not complex, but some of the intricacies come in terms of how the game plays. E for engagement. Is the game engaging? Well, personally, I find it is. I really like this game. I love the artifact cards. Some of these, the names on some of these, and sort of what they're relating to. That I find really fun. The cards are brilliant. Looking at them combos, how you can do them loop mechanisms, that is where the engagement comes from for me. Playing that jam donut or strawberry donut, whatever it is, to kick out some riffs or kick out a clock, I don't know what the ability is, but that's where the fun, that's where the engagement comes from. I like the tense, when you're dropping 4 or 5 rift cubes down here, where are they going to go? Are you going to end up with a rift or a vortex? I like that part of the game. And overall, I find the aesthetics of the game very pleasing, and the whole game itself, it draws me in and it engages me in the gameplay and trying to defeat their missions. Looking at all that mission's nearly complete, I need to go over there and complete that quick in case a rift happens and the vortex comes and kicks everything out. So yeah, I find the game very engaging. Components. What are the components like? Well, as you saw, components I find them pretty good, and this sort of cube tower or whatever it is, cube tower, and that's pretty good. The card stock, again, this is all pretty good. The cardboard tokens for like the mission tiles, that's all good. You've got the vortex tokens or the vortex pieces and the sort of the mission tiles. Everything's pretty good. I've not had any issues with the tower. Everything seems to work well. And yeah, the main art style I really like. Sort of like cartoony, funky, a little bit wacky, crazy art style. I think is really appealing for me. I really enjoy sort of looking at the cards and seeing sort of what they're relating to in terms of modern day life or from past ages. So yeah, the components are very good for what you get in the box. You get a fair bit in there, and is worth sort of worth the price that you pay for the game. So target audience, who is this game for? Well, it's certainly not for people that are new to the hobby. There's just a little bit too much rules-wise for that, but maybe Gateway Plus sort of game. So if you've played a few co-ops and want to move on, something with a little bit more to it, a little bit more variability with the additional cards that you've got there. I think it's good for that. It'd be good for families with children that are a little bit older that have played sort of some of the more basic co-op games that want to advance onto something else. The only thing I would be aware of is that there is a fair bit of randomness into the game, so if you're not into, or you can't cope with that randomness, you know, you could chuck your wrist down here and 3 of them could come out in the same space and you could create a vortex and you could lose a mission that you've been working on for the past 2 or 3 goes. But as long as you can get over that, it is a relatively quick game. You're looking at 45 minutes to an hour, that sort of frame, so the randomness might put some people off, but yeah, sort of people who like co-op games are going to like this. People who have got older children, families, or even as a solo gamer, you know, I've played this probably more solo, just controlling 2 characters, than I have multiplayer. So that's who I would say this game is for. So there you have it. That is another DICECT review of The Loop done and dusted. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got something out of this. If you did like my my review, if you want to discuss my review, if you want to discuss your thoughts, please drop a comment below. Hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate the subs. I'd love to engage with you. I'd love to know what you think of this game. Have you played it? What did you think? Have you been hit by that randomness? Let me know your thoughts. And also check out all my social media content down below in the show notes. And be sure to find me on, well, pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find my email address and my blog where I've done my final thoughts and my D4 dice review. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day and see you on the next DICECT review. Bye bye.